There is, believe it or not, a playbook for what Russian President Vladimir Putin's troops are doing right now in Ukraine. It's a playbook written during the long civil war in Syria, where Putin used Russia's military might to attack civilian targets. The Russians intervened to support Syria's president, who remains in power. Senior investigative correspondent Catherine Herridge has the very first TV interview in the U.S. with an eyewitness to alleged war crimes in Syria. It can get worse. Catherine, good morning.
Good morning, Tony. Our investigative team spoke exclusively with Syrian refugees who witnessed crimes against humanity, and they fear for the people of Ukraine because they know what the Russian president did in their country. As a warning, the report is graphic and may be upsetting to some people.
Russia's stepped-up attacks on civilians in Ukraine are now called war crimes by the State Department. And President Biden says responsibility lies with Vladimir Putin.
The devastation that is occurring at the hands of a man who, I quite frankly, think is a war criminal.
The bombing of this maternity hospital in Mariupol is not the first time Russian forces have targeted the most vulnerable. Vladimir Putin used the same playbook in Syria nearly a decade ago to keep President Bashar al-Assad, a longtime ally, also accused of war crimes, in power.
Well, I think we have to recognize the critical role that Russia played in the crimes committed by the Assad regime, and crimes so horrendous that the UN stopped counting the dead at 400,000 7 years ago.
Stephen Rapp, a former U.S. ambassador at large for war crimes, told us Putin's air campaign in 2016 kept Assad in control.
When it looked like Assad was going to be overthrown by his own people, the Russians came all in and joined in the bombardment of hospitals and civilian neighborhoods.
And now a new Syrian witness has come forward. Earlier this month on Capitol Hill, he shared his first-hand account of 2 mass graves in Syria. This is his first U.S. television interview.
The regime is a tyrannical regime, and I fear for my family.
Because of ongoing security threats, we agreed to shield his identity. He's known only as the gravedigger.
Twice a week, multiple trailer trucks would come, and each truck would have upwards of 100 to 400 or more bodies.
That voice you're hearing is the gravedigger's translator, Moaz Mustafa, who runs an advocacy group, the Syrian Emergency Task Force.
They were tortured to death. You could see clearly the signs of torture on their bodies.
You're describing a system of mass murder.
Yes, absolutely. This was a systematic machinery of death.
The gravedigger pointed us to this site near the Syrian capital. These satellite images obtained by CBS News show its transformation from a barren field to a series of trenches.
Everything that was going on, the mass graves, were systematic and were part of what the Assad regime wanted to do.
Based on the gravedigger's account and other evidence, in a landmark decision last January, a German court found a former Syrian colonel guilty of crimes against humanity. The gravedigger said he knows what the Russians are capable of.
I see the news coming out of Ukraine. My heart hurts because I know what Russia has done in Ukraine, what it can do, because I know what it's done in Syria.
What is the benefit of your power if you don't use it for good?
Syrian refugee Omar al-Shogri blends in with his fellow undergrads at Georgetown University.
You know, when I was in jail, I never thought I would make it out.
Which is remarkable given this picture from 2015, after Omar spent 3 years in Syrian detention.
Here you have like the cigarette burn.
Omar described physical and emotional torture, telling us the regime kept meticulous records of the prisoners who died around him.
I numbered hundreds of bodies, if not thousands of bodies.
How do you emotionally survive that?
This, human part of you disappears in order for you to survive.
7 years after his mother helped him escape from Syria, Omar is now an advocate for human rights. And last month, he reunited with his sister, showing us it's possible to thread the needle of despair and stitch together hope and purpose.
I can cry for 100,000 years for what I went through. It wouldn't even be enough, right? But I am going to tell everyone, to tell the story of the Syrian people through me.
While the evidence is overwhelming and in plain view, the Syrian president has consistently denied crimes against his own people. This mirrors Putin's strategy in Ukraine. His spokesman has categorically rejected the allegations of war crimes. Lad.
Stitching together hope and purpose. Catherine, thank you very much.